It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update as new champions are crowned at Impact Bound for Glory. A number of surprises fell through right before the show, and Charlotte Flair was at AEW Dynamite following a backstage bust-up at WWE SmackDown. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first, let's go to some stories from last night's episode of AEW Saturday Night Dynamite, where a released WWE superstar was spotted in the crowd. AEW would sit former WWE Cruiserweight Champion Tony Nese at ringside during the show, with the camera focusing on him twice throughout the broadcast during the two World Title Eliminator Tournament matches between Bryan Danielson and Dustin Rhodes and Eddie Kingston against Lance Archer. Both times the AEW commentators would mention him by name, calling him one of the hottest free agents in the business. Nese was released from WWE back in June of this year, ending his 5-year stint, which began in 2016 at the Cruiserweight Classic. After becoming a free agent, he has since worked 5 independent matches throughout the east of the United States. Whilst his status with All Elite Wrestling is still unknown, it seems Tony Nese could be All Elite very soon. That's if he hasn't signed a contract already. Next up, last night's show saw the beginning of the AEW Women's TBS Championship Tournament, with Ruby Soho and Penelope Ford going head-to-head in the first round. As expected, Ruby, who is the likely winner of the title, defeated Ford despite an attempted interference from the Bunny, who failed to hand her friend Ford a set of brass knucks with the referee catching her in the act. This led to an O'Connor roll from the Punk Rocker for the victory. Soho now advances to the next round, where she meets Chris Statlander, who had a first round bye due to her position in the AEW rankings. Elsewhere in the tournament, Hikaru Shida will take on Serena Deeb this Wednesday, with the winner of that facing Nyla Rose, who also receives a bye. The Bunny will battle Red Velvet for the chance to wrestle Jade Cargill in the second round, with Anna Jay versus Jamie Hayter finishing things off, with the winner of that meeting Thunder Rosa. And speaking of tournaments, AEW are also in the midst of a world title eliminator to crown the next #1 contender for Kenny Omega or Hangman Page's AEW World Championship, depending on who leaves Full Gear as champion. 3 first round matches have now been complete, with Bryan Danielson defeating Dustin Rhodes to open last night's Dynamite, before Eddie Kingston went on to beat Lance Archer later in the night, with both winners now meeting in round 2. During Kingston's win, Archer would attempt a moonsault from the top rope before landing on his head. This led to Dr. Samson checking on him before Kingston was seemingly ordered to roll him up for a quick win. Whilst there is no official word on Archer's health status, he did take to Twitter to assure fans and said, "Listen, we choose to do this and take our health and lives in our hands every night. I've done that move hundreds of times over my career, just under-rotated. Could have been much worse. Thank you to all at AEW for taking amazing care of me and protecting me. I'll be back." We will bring you an update should any news break on the matter, but let's just hope that he can make a full recovery, as the landing looked pretty bad. And getting back to the Eliminator tournament, there is one first round match left, which will happen next week when Dynamite returns to Wednesday nights, with Jon Moxley taking on 10 of the Dark Order, with the winner of that facing Orange Cassidy, who defeated Powerhouse Hobbs last week on Rampage. Following the leak of the AEW Full Gear card last week, it seems that the final will be between Danielson and Moxley, although plans could change depending on if the leak was intentional or not. Last night, Impact Wrestling held their Bound for Glory pay-per-view live from Las Vegas, Nevada. The show saw multiple title changes and new champions throughout the card, as on the Countdown to Glory show that aired right before the pay-per-view, the first ever Impact Digital Media champion was crowned in a 6-way intergender match. John Skyler, Crazy Steve, Falaar Bar, Chelsea Green and Madison Rayne would all come up short, as former Impact Knockouts champion Jordan Grace walked out with the belt. The show itself would also see the debuts of the Inspiration, who were formerly known as the Iconics in WWE. They would battle Havoc and Rosemary for the Impact Knockouts tag team titles and would walk away as champions in their first Impact Wrestling match. Later in the night, the vacant X Division title was on the line in a 3-way match following Josh Alexander's decision to trade his belt for a World Championship opportunity via Option C. Trey Miguel would come out on top, defeating Steve Macklin and and Bullet Club's El Fantasmo. This would only be the beginning, as Deonna Purrazzo unsuccessfully defended her Impact Knockouts Championship against veteran and legend Mickie James, with Hardcore Country dropping the champion with a trademark Tornado DDT. This ends the Virtuosa's 343-day reign with the title. And in the main event, former X Division champion Josh Alexander's decision to give up his title seemed to pay off, as he managed to put away Impact World Champion Christian Cage with an ankle lock. However, the celebrations alongside his wife and son were short-lived, as Moose would cash in his Call Your Shot title opportunity, catching the new champion off guard with a devastating spear, leaving as the new Impact World Champion. Earlier in the night, Moose won the Call Your Shot gauntlet match, which allowed him to challenge for any Impact title whenever he liked, and he didn't wait around long. This is his first ever Impact World title run, having previously held the unofficial TNA World Championship. And speaking of Impact Bound for Glory, let's look at some stuff that didn't happen. This week it had been reported that Adam Scherr, who is the former Braun Strowman in WWE, was spotted flying to Las Vegas from Chicago ahead of the show. In a report from PW Insider, they stated that Scherr was expected to appear this weekend for Impact, likely at Bound for Glory. This was also heavily hinted at in recent weeks, with Impact EVP Scott D'Amore using the term Braun for Glory during a live stream, as well as reports saying that he met with Scherr in a hotel bar earlier this week. According to the PW Insider report, he was set to use the nickname of The Titan, a name that he is also hinted at using on social media. This is of course a play on his former employer WWE's headquarters Titan Towers, as well as their former company name of Titan Sports. Many fans who tuned in to Bound for Glory to see Braun for Glory were left disappointed, as the show went off the air with no Titan in sight. In an update from Sean Ross Sapp ahead of the show, he revealed that some expected surprises will not be happening after tweeting, "Have heard of a couple of surprises Impact hoped to land for tonight, but fell through for various reasons." Whilst the tweet doesn't explicitly reference Braun Strowman, we can only assume that he was one of the scrapped surprises, considering the news that has broken throughout the week. Impact will be holding TV tapings over the next 2 nights, which could be where we see Titan debut. That's if he is still in town, although it would have made sense for him to show up on the biggest show of the year, which leaves this possibility in doubt. Another name that fans have speculated on appearing was Bray Wyatt, although he is likely still seeing out his non-compete clause following his WWE release and will not be able to appear elsewhere until the 29th of October, which is next Friday. That's unless he can negotiate his way out of it a bit earlier, like we saw with Chelsea Green in July. Another name that was rumoured was also Buddy Murphy, who was also hinted at by Scott D'Amore, but again, he was nowhere to be seen. With that said though, in the Call Your Shots gauntlet, we did see the debut of the Kiss Demon from WCW under the name The Demon, so I guess it's not a lose-lose situation. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you drop a like on the video as it helps me out a lot, and make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head, hopefully, towards 100,000 subscribers. But now, let's press play on the video. And finally, this past Friday, there was a real-life backstage confrontation after WWE SmackDown following the breakdown of a segment during the show. WWE SmackDown Women's Champion Becky Lynch and Raw Women's Champion Charlotte Flair would take part in a title exchange after both were drafted away from their respective brands earlier this month. The segment was supposed to see both women hand over their titles to the other, but things didn't go quite so smoothly, as Charlotte would go to hand her belt to Lynch before dropping it on the floor. WWE authority figure Sonya Deville would demand Charlotte pick the title up and hand it over respectfully, before Deville took the belt from Flair, handing it to Becky. Becky Lynch would then throw her belt at Charlotte, looking furious while she did so. Many reports that followed would say that this was not part of the plan, with the two women confronting each other backstage over what happened in the ring. Although the two didn't come to blows, the scene was a cause for concern for WWE officials. According to sources sources close to the situation, Flair said that dropping the belt on the floor was an accident, with few believing that that was the case. According to TalkSport, Flair and Lynch's friendship has been strained for some time, with sources saying that Flair didn't appreciate being called plastic during a promo a couple of years ago, and it's been tense ever since. TalkSport also added that all parties involved were unhappy with the planned segment, with Flair particularly unhappy with plans to have Becky take both belts before eventually handing over the SmackDown title. Vince McMahon was also said to be unhappy with Charlotte as she left without talking to him before heading to Orlando to be backstage at AEW Dynamite to support her fiancé Andrade, with the report adding that she was escorted out of the building by security. Andrade took to Twitter to add fuel to the fire after saying "F you, WWE." Whilst this incident has fueled many Charlotte Flair to AEW rumors, that doesn't appear to be the case as of this recording. Unless WWE decides to release her, she won't be going anywhere anytime soon, with PW Insider adding that she has several years left on her contract. And before you go, make sure you check out my video where I rank every single AEW champion from worst to best, including the TNT, Women's, Tag Team and World Championship.